our goal today is to answer your questions while we're here together and talk through this grant program together. So I have a few informational slides, and then we will get into the Q&A. Thank you all. All right, so first things first, I want to talk about CDFA and our culture of support and collaboration. So we are constantly asking ourselves as we are designing this grant program and working to support it, how can we simplify the application? How can we get it as short as possible? How can we ask the most clear questions as possible? Might not feel like that as you're going through the app, but that's our intention. How can we help people apply, whether it's through these Q&A sessions or online emails? How can we celebrate and validate the work that people are doing while also asking them to do more with the grant program? And then lastly, how can we create lasting impact with this grant? So how can we make sure that these grant funds that we have just for this year, how can these funds create a long-term impact? It's really important to us that you feel like we hear you, we're here to answer your questions, and that we actually do want to hear from you on how to revise the program in the future as well. Our guiding practices are to provide support and technical assistance, to provide office hours and peer-to-peer learning spaces, and to do cross-pollination across programs throughout the state. So just here in the chat today, there's a bunch of new organizations that I hadn't heard of or districts that I didn't know yet. We're really excited to be able to bring you into our broader farm to school network, as well as into this grant, application portal. All right, next slide, please. The purpose and priorities for the California Farm to School Incubator Grant Program: it will award competitive grants to support projects that cultivate equity, nurture students, build climate resilience, and create scalable and sustainable change. These funding priorities go across all 4 grant tracks. So no matter your application, you should be asking yourself, how can my project engage students from underserved communities? How can my project serve schools located among priority populations that are especially vulnerable to the impacts of climate change? How can my project include small to mid-sized food producers, veteran food producers, or socially disadvantaged food producers, or limited resource food producers and farm households? And how can my project include food producers who utilize climate smart ag practices, climate smart ag production systems, like certified organic or transitioning to certified organic, or other regenerative strategies that increase resilience to climate change, improve the health of communities and soil, protect water and air quality, increase biodiversity, and help store carbon in the soil? So no matter your project, we hope that you're reflecting on these really important priorities. They will also be reflected in the scorecard. All right, next slide, please. There are 4 funding tracks, like I mentioned earlier. We'll go through each funding track today. Yes, you can apply to multiple funding tracks, and yes, you can apply if you have an existing grant with us. And we have additional information on that if you need it. All right, next slide, please. Here's what to expect in this webinar: a brief overview of each funding track. Then I'll have the program timeline so you can see where we're at in the process. We're getting near the end now, which is exciting. And then we have time for Q&A. And the Q&A can take place in the chat. It can take place with hands raised, or people can email their questions to us. Like I said before, the webinar will be recorded and posted online. All right, next slide. Track 1 is the Farm to School K through 12 Procurement and Education Grant. It will fund individual public school districts, county offices of ed, and directly funded charter schools in California to establish new or expand existing farm to school programs. Each application needs to include these 2 elements. It needs to coordinate the school nutrition services program with educational opportunities for students in classrooms, cafeterias, and/or outdoor learning spaces. And it needs to procure California grown or produced whole or minimally processed foods for incorporation into school meals, especially foods that are culturally relevant from those priority producers. You can employ farm to school staff and/or offer farm to school professional development. We think it's really important to build capacity, so that's why that's an allowable cost. There is a funding formula for track 1. It's $10 per student enrolled in the 1920 school year. So you look at your enrollment, you do the multiplication, you see what number comes up. If that number is less than $150,000, then you can apply for up to $150,000. If your number is more than $1 million, then you have to pull it back down to 1 million as a maximum award. The reason why we use funding formulas for this track is to allow for awards to scale with the diversity of school districts that we have. We have some mega huge districts, we have some teeny tiny districts. So that's why this one has a funding formula. All right, next slide, please. Here is the scorecard for track 1. You can see points for community need, which is who is your project serving? Are you engaging students from underserved communities? Are you serving schools located among priority populations? There's other data points that we ask for in the application. And then there's also a making the case question, where you get to introduce your community to us and state why this farm to school project would be important and serve a community need. So yes, there are numbers that you will report. So we have apples to compare your application and community to others. But then there's also that opportunity to tell the story, to make the case for yourself, because we know that the numbers don't always paint an accurate picture. All right, then there's 25 points for project description and 20 points for healthy, equitable, resilient food system. That's where we're, again, looking at the priorities of the project. Who are you partnering with? Does your project include those priority groups of producers? We hope it does, and you get extra points if it does. It's 100 points total. All right, next slide, please. Then there's track 2. This is our Farm to School Partnerships Grant. Track 2 will fund regional and statewide farm to school partnerships in California to establish new or expand existing farm to school initiatives that do one of the following. They can implement farm to school procurement and or education strategies as part of a larger regional or statewide food system development plan. So if you have like a county level plan or a regional plan that says, you know, here's what we're going to do for the food system, we're going to eliminate hunger in our community, and here's the role that schools play, then great opportunity there to show that your farm to school program is making a collective impact. You could also apply in this second option to increase collaboration and coordination regionally or statewide between California food producers and school nutrition services departments to increase procurement of California grown or produced whole or minimally processed foods for incorporation into school meals, especially foods that are culturally relevant, climate smart, and from our priority producer groups. So this is if you're like a food hub, or if you're somebody who's really coordinating a bunch of farms and a bunch of schools, and you're helping get that procurement relationship in place, you need funding to scale that work up, and then the school meal purchases are going to sustain it long term. That's a great option here in track 2, and that's why it's highlighted as the second option. The third option would be to provide farm to school procurement and or educational technical assistance or capacity building support regionally or statewide to more than one farm to school implementing organization, i.e. a public charter or a public school district, county office of ed, or direct funded charter school. So that's if you're helping a bunch of districts implement this work, or helping a bunch of farms implement this work. It's technical assistance. So you're providing help and guidance and expertise in order to scale farm to school. The most important thing to know in track 2 is that this needs to be a collective impact grant. If it's mostly going to benefit one party, then it's probably not eligible for this track, and you should really rethink it, look at the goals and criteria again. For track 2, the award amounts are $100,000 to $500,000. So you get to select it in this funding track. You tell us how much you need. Next slide, please. Here is the scorecard for track 2. It should look very familiar to you, as it's similar to track 1. You can see 40 points for community need. So who are you working with? What students are you working with? Data points, and then also that make the case question. And then 20 points for healthy, equitable, resilient food system. So who are you partnering with, and how are you scaling that work together? All right, next slide. And everyone, I'm going a little bit faster today through the slides because I know we have a lot of Q&A to come. If you want a more fully detailed breakdown of all of the tracks, you can go to the first webinar recording on our grant website, and it's me really going into the weeds on each grant track. So today is much more of an overview to get to Q&A. All right, back to it. Track 3, the Farm to ECE grant overview. Track 3 will fund childcare centers in California and Farm to ECE support organizations to establish new or expand existing Farm to ECE programs that coordinate food and garden-based hands-on learning and play opportunities for young children and if desired for their families, and procure California grown or produced whole or minimally processed foods for incorporation into meals, snacks, taste tests, and or food boxes for young children, especially foods that are culturally relevant, climate smart, and from those priority producer groups that we've identified, and offer farm to ECE technical assistance and or peer learning spaces to ECE staff, teachers, or families. And if you want to, just like in track 1, you can employ staff to support this project. We had a question last time on what is technical assistance or peer learning spaces. Those are just professional development and capacity building opportunities. I think it's really important to build that capacity for your team to provide the training and opportunity to implement best practices and create a sustainable program. So in track 3, that's a necessary component of each app. All right, and then at the bottom, you can see CDFA encourages track 3 projects to incorporate parent and family engagement and to build connections with K-12 and CACFP programs. So if there's an opportunity to build that bridge, we think it's important to do it. The award amounts in this track, in track 3, are $50,000 to $200,000. And again, it's not a funding formula. You tell us how much you need and apply for that. All right, next slide. You can see the scorecard here, again, very similar to the other tracks. Most importantly, 40 points for community need. So who are you serving, the data and the qualitative where you tell the story. And then 20 points for the food system, healthy, equitable, resilient food system. So who are you partnering with? Are you partnering with our priority producer groups, climate smart farms, and all of those types of organizations? The total is 100 points in track 3 as well. All right, next slide, please. This is our last track to talk about today before we get to the Q&A. It's track 4, the Farm to School Producer Grant. Track 4 will fund California food producers to increase production, processing, and or distribution of whole or minimally processed foods for the school food market. Track 4 will also fund California food producers to provide hands-on educational opportunities for youth that complement their food sales or donations to schools. To be eligible, a producer must show evidence of an established relationship with at least one school nutrition services department. The award amounts in this track are $5,000 to $150,000. And again, it is not a funding formula. So you tell us how much you need. All right, next slide. The scorecard for track 4 is a little bit different, but the categories are the same. So you can see that there is 5 points up top for relationships with school nutrition services departments. So do you have an established relationship with this district? Do they know you? Have you partnered together in the past? What's your relationship look like? 2 points for description of food production history and farm to school vision. So have you farmed before? Are you a first-time farmer or a new farmer? And how does farm to school fit into your vision for your farm? Are you growing at the market and to restaurants and to schools? Do you want to specialize in schools? How does it fit into what you hope to do as a farmer? 15 points for project description, where you outline what you'll do with your project. 25 points for healthy, equitable, resilient food system. So are you engaging students from underserved communities? Are you serving schools located among priority populations? Are you a small to mid-sized food producer? Are you a veteran food producer from one of these priority groups of producers that we have? And then 8 points for project viability. So that's your budget. Does your budget reflect your project description? And then your sustainability plan for how this project, which elements of this project can be sustained beyond the duration of the grant. So for example, if you're getting a trailer to do deliveries, the grant's going to cover the cost of the trailer, the refrigerated trailer. Now, you have it. It's not going to go anywhere. That's sustainable as a really kind of clear and easy concrete example. All right, next slide, please. So here's our timeline for the grant. You can see that application started way back in May 9th. It feels like forever ago for us, but it's really just a blank. And the applications are in an online portal called WiseHive. And on our grant website, if you're having any trouble with WiseHive, if you're like, I can't figure this out, I created my login, but then I'm having trouble with the application, we have a recording online on our grant website that that shows you how to utilize WiseHive. And Amy was so great on our Farm to School team. Shout out Amy for recording this. It's a screen share. So you'll be able to see exactly how she's navigating that system. And you can see in the chat right now, if you're on with us live, that the first webinar recording is in there where we go into detail on every single grant track, as well as the video tutorial on how to use WiseHive. So, and there's one for each grant track there as well. Weekly throughout the application period, we're doing these webinars. And so we have this one today, and then we added one next week on the morning of the application due date. So we're figuring we're going to be answering a lot of last minute questions there. July 6th by 5 p.m. applications are due. So that's when you have to hit submit on that application. If things are going wrong for you in the system, please email us and let us know. But we expect 5 p.m. Pacific time for the applications to be submitted. July through August, we will be reviewing all of the applications. Then in September, we will give notification of who has been selected. September through December, we'll be establishing grant agreements. So we'll be going through with each of the selected grantees, reviewing the budget, reviewing the narrative, finalizing all of those details in your grant. So we are getting some questions about, like, do I have to line item each specific thing that I'm going to purchase? You know, we want you to follow the budget template, but know that we will be refining and fine-tuning and finalizing budgets as we're establishing grant agreements. Then it's estimated December 1st, projects can start, and projects must end by November 30th, 2024. So if you're looking at the project timeline, it's December 1st to November 2022 to November 30th, 2024. All right, next slide, please. Here's how CDFA can help and how we can't help. We get a lot of great questions, and we have this culture of support and collaboration, but we do want to set a clear boundary of what we are and aren't able to do. What we can do is answer informational questions about the grant via email and webinars. So if you're on here with us, please ask your questions. If you're emailing us, keep sending them. We can introduce producers in school support organizations or schools. So if you're a producer looking to connect with a school, we can do email introductions for you. If you're a school looking for farms, we can try to connect you. Just know that, we don't know every farmer in the state, and we don't know every school in the state. So we'll do our best with our network and ability to connect you and make these relationships happen. But it's it's still going to be, I hate to say it this way, but it's still on you to make that relationship grow and build, and to plant that seed and tend it until it grows into something established and strong. So, you can ask us for those introductions though, and we'll do our best. We can provide technical support for the online application portal in WiseHive. So if you're having WiseHive issues, please just reach out. Here's what we can't do. We can't provide specific feedback on grant project ideas. So if you're asking, well, I want to do this or I want to do this, which one will score better? We're not able to answer that for you, but we can give you the scorecard and review criteria for you to make that decision for yourself. We also cannot assist with writing the grant application for you. So yeah, we can't write it for you. That's it. Not a lot of explanation for that one. All right, next slide. Okay, so here we are, we're getting into the Q&A now. So there's two options for question and answer today. You can put your questions in the chat, or you can go to the reactions feature on Zoom and go to raise hand, and then we will go through all of the questions. Because I don't see any questions in the chat right now. Oh, I see one now, but typically we go through the hands first and then into the chat. And again, if you have to jump off the call or whatever, we are recording this. So, and it will be posted to YouTube. So we want to go through all the questions that we have today. And yeah, we also have this option here that you can see for email. Send written questions to cafarmtoschool@cdfa.ca.gov. So if you want to jump off now, or you can't stay on Zoom this whole time, you can also email your question. And that's pretty, pretty clear. We do get a lot of emails, so we answer them literally as fast as we can all day, every day. We are answering these emails. Again, so now we're going to jump into the questions. Please be as quick as you can with your questions if you're raising your hand, and know that we can't give that specific guidance. Okay. I'm going to unspotlight, or can someone unspotlight me, and then I'll check out see if I can see the hands raised. All right, there's a bunch. So I'll go through those, and then I'll go into the chat. One easy question that I see in the chat that I will answer is, we weren't able to get the grant together this year. Will grants be open next year? Yes, next year we'll have almost $60 million available in farm to school grants. So if you're like, I need to take 4th of July for myself, I actually need a holiday break. I don't want to fill out a grant this whole weekend. Then know that we do have grants coming next year as well. All right. Okay, so now I'm going to the hands. I see Sean is at the top of my list. Hi, Sean, you can unmute yourself and then ask your question.
Hey, how's it going? Thank you for hosting this meeting. Quick question. I was told about this grant maybe like last week, so I'm definitely trying to fill it out. I have everything covered. The only thing I'm having a hard time is getting hold of nutrition department. And I see for track 1, it's mandatory that the nutrition department, you kind of have their understanding. What would you suggest, given the timeline, the best way to answer that, given it's kind of hard to get a hold of them?
Yeah, I mean, I would try everything in your power to get a hold of them. I would see if they're doing summer meal service sites. A lot of schools have now transitioned to summer feeding. I think that could be an option to get a hold of them, is to show up there. And then also I would suggest, each school district has to list multiple points of contact for the school nutrition department. So I would just kind of work through that list and do what you can to get to somebody, to get that application, to get that letter of intent submitted. And then Amy, are there other options if they aren't able to track down this person, in the last week?
Hi, Sean. No, Nick, I don't think I have anything to add. I think those are great suggestions.
Yeah, so we just got to try to track them down as quick as you can. And yeah, we're getting quite a few questions about this, and it's going to go back to knocking on the door and just trying to figure out how you can get a cell phone number or something like that. I think also you could, if you're in a last ditch effort, try the school board and start calling people on the school board to say, hey, I have this grant ready to submit. I just haven't been able to get a hold of this person, now that it's the first week of summer or whatever, and see if you can get contact info that way.
Thank you. Thank you for the suggestions. I just had one more question.
Yeah.
Is there any problems with composting or creating a composting system? Because I kind of just had to go through the district to get approval for a master's project. And with the new law coming up, can we just segue this grant into a composting system?
You totally could. If you wanted to do that, what we suggest is following all health and safety guidelines. And then we have some support services in place at CDFA to support composting best practices so that nobody's getting sick from the compost, and nobody wants rats in their garden either. So all of that normal composting stuff, we can support you on the details of it if your project is selected, or if not, just email us and we can also provide support.
Thank you again.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, the next question I see is Gray. Hey, Gray.
Hi, Nick. Thanks for taking my question. Actually, I have 2 really short ones.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So number 1 is what constitutes an agreement from the school district to use their land for farming? We're already farming on their land. We have the unwritten approvals from everyone involved. What would gain your understanding that we have this district's approval?
I think you would just need some sort of written document that says, yes, we support what you do and know what you're doing. It's just some form of written agreement so that we can understand that all the parties know what's going on and are on board. I think it could come from a maintenance department. It could come from a principal. I think ideally it would come from as high up as you could go with it, so that we trust that if this project gets funded, you're not going to hit any internal roadblocks, right? That all of those roadblocks are out of the way, and it's already hard enough to do it without all those.
Got it. But any of the entities you named could be considered an authority by you guys.
I think yes. I think as long as you have a written agreement and understanding, then that's all we're asking for here. Whether that's an MOU or a lease or something else, we just want it in writing.
Okay, but a letter would not it would be an MOU, correct? Signed.
Yeah, I think an MOU would be ideal.
Authority to sign.
Yeah,
okay.
I think that would be ideal.
Okay, if the MOUs usually have to go through the board. If it can't get through the board in time, which is obviously the case, could it be something that could be a letter that follows up with an MOU that was signed by the board at a later date after the application was in process?
Yeah, I think something like that would be okay. You would need something to submit as part of the application. Maybe like a shared use agreement. There's all these other different options that maybe wouldn't have to go through the board, but then you would follow up with that document to show the sustainability piece of it. But
Got it.
To us, it's just something to verify that everyone knows what's going on.
No, I understand. Okay, I'll look to the operations director. My other quick
Yeah.
question was, I understand that any EIN number can only submit one application for track 4.
Yeah.
If there are 2 different schools in 2 different districts where we operate school-based farms, it would be obviously ideal for our nonprofit to be the applicant for both entities, but we would like to apply for the full amount for each one.
Mhm.
Do you, what is your standard for our farm operators to create a business entity that would be a viable applicant for one or the other of the school farms?
Ooh, this is a great question. I'm not sure. Amy, do you know off the top of your head, or is that something you think we'll have to take back to our other grant programs that have more experience working with producers directly?
Hi, great. Yeah, that's a great question. So I'll try to answer, but if I'm not addressing your question, let us know and we'll keep looking into it. But yeah, for track 4, an entity that has a unique tax identification number is allowed to submit, one application for that number. So if they're operating 2 separate farm locations, but under the same tax ID, they could only submit one track 4 application. But if each farm location is under a separate tax ID number, then they could submit a separate application on behalf of each entity. And then, oh, I had something else to say and it totally left my brain. But yeah, did that answer your question?
Well, in a way, I mean, it's just tricky because the district can't apply, right? The people who are operating the farm are staff of our nonprofit organization. So for them to create a business entity, I mean, one of them actually has a business entity, but the state law forced us to make them staff.
Mhm.
And so if otherwise there's a lot of legal and insurance issues that come up because of AB5. And
Yeah.
so basically, if they were to create a different business entity, which they could do, they could use for the purposes of this, they could operate as their business entity. The problem is that that would put us in shaky legal ground as a nonprofit organization.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think for this track, it really is going to limit it to one application. And then I think the other option is to have those school districts look at track 1 as opportunities, and then they can contract. So it is also allowable in track 1 for schools to apply and then use funding from the grant to support school farms or nonprofits that provide wraparound farm to school opportunities. So that's the other option if, now it's so late, but for future years or this year, if they've already started it, to possibly look at adding line items in the budget to support that project from a track 1 perspective and opportunity.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate your help.
Yeah, of course. Okay, next question I have on here is Keith Martin. Hi, Keith. Hold on. Yeah. Everyone's got to unmute. I always say I feel like I'm on a radio show doing this. Hi, Keith. You're up next. What can I do for you?
Oh, that's great. I had to get off of the mute. Oh, thank you so much for taking our questions. Do appreciate it, and just the information you provided. We're a CSA, a small CSA, and we're filling out for track 4. Yeah. And in filling out the application, I've noticed a few things about it that perhaps you can help me understand. The word counts, for example, every time you use like a hyphen or like a slash, it counts as a word. Should we consider that a word and then back down our word count?
I'm not sure. I think as long as it lets you submit it, it's fine.
It does allow you to submit it, but what it does is it puts the word count over and gives you that red warning.
Oh,
you're beyond the 200 words. So like, for example, in some of my responses, I provided bullet points. Well, the bullet points don't go through, so I used hyphens, but each hyphen became a word, in the count.
Yeah.
So I don't know I mean, if there's a way around it, I can remove a space and join it right next to a word.
Yeah.
And then, then it doesn't count it as a word itself.
Oh, that's so funny. Amy, what do you think about that in Wise Hive?
Hi, Keith. Yeah, thank you. We did not realize that when we created the application. So that's really good for us to know. We can't fix it at this point for this round. But I think the suggestion you just mentioned is a wonderful one about deleting the space so that the hyphen becomes part of a word and isn't counted as its own independent word. Because we do ask that you stay within the word count, just so that when the reviewers are reviewing applications, there's no like questions that could come up as, you know, just like impacting your application.
Great, I will do that. I'm a high school English teacher, though it's really hard to do that.
Yeah.
All
well,
right.
You're gonna have to cut for clarity, Keith. You're gonna have to cut for clarity.
And then second question I have real quick, they're real short. When because we run our CSA under my tax ID. So when I try to put my last 4 of my social, it adds a comma there.
Yeah.
So 5 comma, you know, so it's strange. So that's probably something you can't address either then. I guess it's assuming that I'm putting 5,771, you know, so that's kind of interesting. Go ahead, Amy, sorry.
Oh, sorry. No, that's another great catch. Also, yeah, something we can't address for this round, but we'll definitely keep that in mind. And I think what happened was we put that as a numbers only field so that applicants couldn't write letters in the text box, only numbers. And I think by making it a numbers only field, then the default is to add commas if you go, you know, like above 3 digits. So it's kind of silly, but we definitely recognize that when we review applications. So yeah,
okay,
thank you for noticing.
Well, I just want to make sure I'm not doing something, you know, that's causing that. You're going to look at it and say, well, that's not a real social security number. Where'd the comma come from? All right.
No, it's our error. Yeah.
The third item, and this is probably more significant, and I've addressed this with Michael, in the budget spreadsheet. Category 3 is not totaling out in the overall total direct costs or grand total. So when I put in a couple of items there, they're excluded from my grand total. So how do I address that?
Yeah, that's another one of our own errors in that budget worksheet for track 4. So what we suggest you do is you can change the formula, and we have kind of like screenshots and step-by-step of how to do that. So where it says total direct costs in the budget worksheet, if you click on that dollar amount to the right of where it says total direct costs, click on that box, and then you go up to the formula line at the top of the spreadsheet, and it'll have like, you know, equals sum, and then in parentheses it has all the different boxes, and it's just missing the one that is for that spending category 3. So I forget the name of that box. It's like G something. You would just add that, you know, like comma, add that into the formula, and then press enter on your keyboard. And then the formula should calculate correctly. And we have that written out because I acknowledge that it's probably confusing hearing me say this out loud. So we can send that to you in writing.
Oh, that would be wonderful. Yeah, I would. Because it sounds a little complex to follow, but yeah, if I could just put that in, and then the last one, it's just a definition on the application itself. Question number 23 says program income, and then it relates it to actually the grant. So would I give you like what our CSA has been bringing in every year? Or is this something anticipated through the program, the income that we would derive from, you know, expanding our services to schools that we already serve?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So program income, and there's a better definition in the application. I don't know if I'm getting the wording completely right, but yeah, it's income that you generate if you receive a grant award because of your grant award and your grant award activities. So if the grant award, if you receive a grant and the grant award is funding you to increase your production or processing or distribution of food to schools, and then you're making income off of that, then that would be considered grant generated income, and the expectation is that a grant recipient would reinvest that into their project to enhance or expand their project and spend it on allowable costs. But income you make, you know, as a result of your project after the grant duration is not considered program income because the grant term has ended. And additionally, any income that you're making during the grant term that's not a result of the grant project, say, you know, on your own, you're funding, your ability to distribute CSAs to community members or something like that, and you're making income off of that, but it's not a result of your grant award, then that wouldn't be included as program income in this grant program.
Okay, so that really distinguishes the two. Our existing relationships with restaurants and subscribers, that's not included in that. But what we anticipate by expanding our services to some of our local schools, that would be considered, quote, our program income. Correct?
Yes,
okay.
Right. Income that's generated through the grant project. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, good. That helps clarify that. Thank you so much. And those were, I'm sorry, but those were the questions I had. I appreciate your answers.
No, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, thank you. And I can tell you, running a grant, man, there's so many of these little details, and it's like, ooh, you think it's going to be easy, and then there's a million decisions. What system? Well, oh, it's putting in commas. Oh, the hyphens are counting. Oh, like all of these things. So thank you so much for helping us refine it too for future years, because
yeah, and that's more of an insecurity on my part to think that I'm going to do something that would kind of kick my application out, and
yeah, of course
that I'm careful with it. Thank you.
No, thank you so much for highlighting it so we can get it all fixed. Thank you, Keith. All right, the next person I see is Yang. How's it going?
Hi, was that for me?
Yeah, hi.
Oh, I'm sorry. Hello, it's me again. I just had a
Yeah,
question.
I'm glad your audio's working. First try, this is great.
Yes. I had a question in regards to the numbers of project partners. So we're collaborating with another local nonprofit to give opportunities or educational opportunities about the food system. And so that's a project partner. I was just wondering if the schools or the districts that we're collaborating with or we're offering these services to are considered partners for this project.
Yes, they would be considered project partners. And Amy, can you verify that and share kind of where they would need to be made, like listed in the app?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Nick. And hi, Yang. Nice to see you again. So in track 2, there are 2 possible project partnership combinations. So the first is at least one farm to school support organization, which it sounds like your organization is, and at least one farm to school implementing organization, which could be a public school district, county office of ed, or directly funded charter school. So that's one possible combination. Another would be at least 2 farm to school implementing organizations. So for example, at least 2 public school districts. So in your application in track 2 for questions 5 and 6 that are about project partners, you would want to include all of your project partners. So you would include yourself as the lead applicant as a farm to school support org. You would include, you mentioned another nonprofit partner, so you would include them as another farm to school support org. And then if you're partnering with a certain number of school districts to directly serve them through your project, then you would include them as farm to school implementing organization partners. And then for each farm to school implementing organization partner, such as a public school district that your project will serve, you then also need to include them in the organizational data section of the application, which is, I believe, question 12, and it has a number of like sub questions within that. And then at the very end of the application, the questions that ask for letters of support, you would need to upload a letter of support from that other nonprofit partner that you're including as a project partner. And you would also need to include a letter of support from each of the public school districts that you're partnering with. And that letter needs to come from their school nutrition services director or equivalent person that's like coordinating and overseeing their school meal program. So lengthy answer, but I hope that addressed your question.
Yes, it did. Thank you so much.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you all. Okay, the next one I see is Julieta or Julieta. And if you're talking, you're on mute right now. I can't tell if you've called in or not. You might have to do *6 if you've called in. Julieta or Julieta Munoz. Okay, we'll come back to you. We'll come back to you. The next person I see is Jacob with a hand up. Hi, Jacob.
Hi, guys.
Hi.
Thanks. So yeah, I'm curious. about applying as a producer. The elementary school that I'm associated with, we provide food for our entire district. We're the hub kitchen.
Yeah, cool.
And I've been employed at the school as a garden educator for a number of years. And we have a little school garden, but we're hoping with this grant, and I know our nutrition director is applying for the other tracks, but we're hoping to convert a 2-acre baseball field into a farm. And so I'm applying as the producer for that. I also have a small farm where I live, and I've only sold to restaurants, not to the school. Does my association as an employee with the school, is that enough of a connection to apply as a producer, or do I have to have sold to them already?
You do not have to have sold to them already. You just need that letter of intent, which we have a template for you on there. You just need a letter of intent from that district buyer, that school nutrition director, who says that they will be, I forget what the exact language is, but like making an effort to work with you and procure with you and partner with you. So, and then, you know, they could also outline that they've known you for however many years. And, you know, this is just a confirmation for us that this is a real human being who knows a real human being, and you're not just, you know, putting the name of some local school district to get money.
Right.
That's awesome. Yeah. So that would be great.
Okay, and then just the second part to that, as long as it's outlined in the grant application or in my subsequent communication, if I was awarded, I can use funds to like build up the personal farm where I live, as well as our intended farm site at the school. Does it matter, or does it have to be tied to one site?
I think there's two things. Like, my gut is saying, yes, you could do both. You would just have to outline that in your plan. But then the second thing is the school nutrition director is also applying to support that school district 2-acre baseball field farm, right? So what you would have to make sure is that there are no duplicate costs in the separate applications, because we can't fund the same thing twice. So you would just have to make sure that the things are separate.
Cool.
Yeah. Amy, anything to add to that? Is that right?
Hi, Jacob.
Hey.
These are awesome questions. I just wanted to clarify. So you are a producer with your own farm separate from the school, and then you're also an employee of the school supporting their school garden and school farm?
Correct.
Okay. So Nick, do you think if a producer is an employee of a school working their farm, can they apply to Track 4 to support that farm? Or would the school district need to be the one applying to then like funnel funds to the employee to support the farm?
To me, as long as they're separate and there's not duplicate costs, I think it would be okay. But you couldn't do like anything that would be in your job duty statement for the school farm. You couldn't do for the producer track, right? So they would have to be separate things, because for Track 1, like, you know, you're already built in doing that stuff. So that's what I mean. Like, you can't bill us for that in Track 4 when you're already getting paid to do it from the school. So you would just have to be really, really clear on outlining how, if you're working at the school, how it's not your current job, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm.
No, absolutely. And I think that what the school pays me for is kind of in regard to like education and working with students. Not, there's maintenance for our school garden, but this grant would go to establishing this new area, not any of that. So I think that's pretty, that's easily done.
I think so as well. And I think that, you know, we had this question earlier about the school district farm. What type of paperwork will I need to show that I'm a producer working on this school district farm and like they're aware of it, you know? And you would need to probably develop, like, as part of your application. I don't think you would need to do this in order to apply, but as part of the application, I think it could be valuable also to develop that MOU to separate yourself as a producer. Because if you're a school employee working on a school district farm, then you can't apply to track 4. But if you're a farmer who's contracting with the school to farm land for them, then you can apply.
Yes, and that's okay, cool. And that's
So you just have
kind of
to
been the
separate.
plan. So
Yeah. There you
awesome.
go. Okay.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Yeah, okay. And Julieta, I see you there. You're back. You made it. Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm all right. Thank you. I just want to say that people's questions have been really useful, and I'm seeing like a lot of similar challenges with working with the school district. But so yeah, thank you all for asking those questions. I have a question on the budget sheet. So I'm pretty new to some of the language. So can you clarify what for track 4 under spending category 2, what's percent FTE?
Yeah, that's the percentage of a full-time employee. So how much of their time will be dedicated to the project?
Okay.
So yeah, so it's like if they're a half-time employee, then it would be 0.5 FTE. And
Okay.
Amy, do you have more info on that, on what it's based on?
I think you got it. Yeah,
Okay.
that's my understanding too.
Yeah, so if someone's working part-time or they're 75% of their time, or it's a 10-hour day, you turn it into a percentage and a decimal.
Okay, so if it's going to be all of their time, would I just put 100%?
Yeah, or you could put 1 FTE. If it's a percentage, then you would put 100%.
Oh,
or you could put 1 full-time employee.
Okay, and then so if it's half of their time, I put 0.5.
Exactly.
Got it. All righty. Yeah, thank you. And
yeah, of course.
Thanks everyone for asking questions I didn't even know I had as well. So
I love it when there's a lot of producers on the call too, because in last year, we only had 1 producer apply for the grant in the whole state. So this year we have this producer track to try to get more producers to see the opportunity. So we're really happy to answer the questions and know that it's hard to fill out a grant. So please keep asking them if you have more.
yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, the next one I saw is Crystal. Crystal, I love your background. Can you tell us which body of water is this? Which river?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I had a problem with my microphone yesterday, so I wasn't sure.
Oh.
This behind me is actually the American River. This is right down the street from my office. I go out and run here all the time.
Beautiful. Well, thank you. Thank you for bringing that to us today. What's your question? How can we help?
So I am uber green, first time ever, and brand new director. Only a year in to chaos. So
which district?
Placer Union High School District.
Cool. Okay.
Auburn. Yeah. Well, actually, our territory spans over like 85 square miles.
Yeah, it's big.
We're very spread out. So my question was, and I think it was already answered, but just getting some double clarification, because I did apply for like the equipment grant this last year, and part of the denial of our equipment grant was that my information I gave about the need for pieces of equipment wasn't very expansive. I look at it as you're going through how many hundreds of grants. Why do you want to read my 5-page description? I try to keep it really, so in that trying to, and we don't have everything figured out right now. We're gonna take it a day at a time. So I guess the question is like, how detailed do you want this information? For example, like going through the project team members, do you want to know the lady who's in charge of communications, who's going to send out the informational flyers, that spends 10 minutes a week sending out that information as part of the project team? Like, how much do you want to know?
I would say like specific to projects, first, I appreciate that you want to be cut right to it and that you're thinking of us as readers. Want to shout that out because I'm right there with you. I'm like, we got to read a lot of these. So thank you. Second, in regards specifically to like project team, this is for track 1, right?
Correct.
An education grant. So what we want to see is like, who's on the procurement team, who's going to be doing this, and who are the educators, right? If you want to put in the comms person who's working on it for 10 minutes, you can, because it's only a 1-sentence description of what they'll do. For that one, then I would say, like, you know, we need to make sure that there's nobody who's going to be blocking your way. So everyone, you know, all those core people who you think should be reflected on there. If there's like a task that's in the project that you want to reflect that team member, then we recommend including them so that we can see that you have a full deck. It's not all on one person. And then like in the project narrative and in the budget descriptions and all of that stuff, we just say like, we want to see a through line where your project narrative is, everything that's in your project narrative is in the project team section, is in the budget section, is in the sustainability section, that you've connected all of those dots. And that just shows that you have a complete plan and everything is in place so that if it gets funded or when it gets funded, you can actually get it started. So like that exact level of detail, we don't want to know how much each strawberry is going to cost, right? But we do, yeah, but we do want the ish amount. And then the other thing is that once if your project is selected, then we also go through with you and we refine all of the budget details and finalize it as part of the grant agreement process. So what we have been telling people is get as detailed as you're able to get to without line iteming it, follow the categories in the budget template, make sure you're answering all the questions that are being asked in WiseHive. And then if things need to get fine-tuned or tweaked later, we can do that.
And then my last question is, what are the things or the reasons as to why people would be denied any grant funding?
This is a great question. So we have the scorecard and review criteria on our grant website, and it has every question in WiseHive and how it will be scored. So it says like a 5-point answer will do this, a 4-point answer will do that. So I would say like the best thing to do is just look through that scorecard and review criteria and make sure that you're in alignment with that. So like just like any class project or whatever, you write out the whole thing, you have it drafted, and then you go back and you say, okay, does it align with this scoring category? Does it align with that scoring category? And do it that way. If you look at the scorecard, it's 40 points for community need, 25 points for healthy, or 20 points for healthy, equitable, resilient food system. That's over half the points right there. So those are the other, elements to keep track of. Mm-hmm.
And the other thing I would add to what Nick said is also in the RFA, it talks about how the review process is in 2 phases. So the first phase is an initial administrative review where our team is making sure that the application is complete and meets the eligibility criteria. And then the second phase is what Nick was talking about, going through and actually scoring the applications based on that review criteria. So on page 43 in the RFA, it talks about ways in which an application could potentially be disqualified in that initial administrative review, like if it's not meeting all of the application requirements or eligibility criteria and things like that. So that could be another thing just to take a look at before you submit your application to make sure that you meet those too.
So in an area that might not be as, like, we are not a CEP district, but what I've learned with COVID is regardless of a family's income, a child's access to nutritious food, it may not just be food.
Yeah.
They may have access to food, but nutritious food can be still limited as what that looks like. So like if you were to look at our free and reduced percentage as a need base, somebody would be like, oh, you guys are fine. But like what I've seen is that our kids are hungry for this change and the community wants to see it too. So how could I translate that into a community need?
Yeah, so we have a data section where you're filling out the data, like you said, CEP sites and all of that info, free and reduced. But then we know the numbers don't tell the whole story, like you're saying. So then there's a question on there that says, like, introduce us to your community and make the case for your community. And That's where you get to tell the story. And you get to say, like, although our numbers might say this, our community has these other important data points. So we recommended last year that people put in like COVID infection rates, unemployment rates, any other data that you might have that shows need in your community, you know, and put it, you can include that information in that section. So like I said, it's quantitative so that we can compare apples to apples, but then there's also that storytelling piece so we can actually understand what's going on. It's kind of the same thing right now, you know, like just outside of Nevada City, there's this big fire. Like that's not showing up in their data, but it's really important to know that communities are going through things and experiencing things. And, you know, so we take that into account.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, the next hand up that I see is Jazz Thomas. Hi, Jazz.
Hi, and thank you so much.
Yeah.
I think I have maybe 2-3 questions under the farm partnerships. So the first part of it is we do have, this is for track 3. We do have a partner with a nursery that is going to be focused on the workshops and also providing herbs and plants to the school as well as the families.
Cool.
And I did get them from the certified producer list from a lead through this grant source. But they're, like I said, they would be providing herbs, but not necessarily the produce. They do fit a lot of the funding priorities under question 22 for track 3. But if they're providing herbs in the workshops, do they still, can I still put them under the funding priorities for the food procurement?
Yeah, so if it's not being procured for the snacks, meals, and taste tests and that kind of thing, then I would say not for procurement. But Amy, I'm going to ask you what you think based on that.
Hi, Jazz. That's a great question. I think, so first, part of our definition of a food producer for this grant is if they cultivate crops. So to me, herbs seem to fit that definition, first of all. And then second, like Nick was saying, there's that question of, what's the purpose of those crops that you'll be buying from the producer, from this nursery? If they're for meals, snacks, taste tests, and or food boxes, then yes, you could include them in that healthy, equitable, resilient food system section. But if it's for workshops and TA and things, then I would think no. But yeah, if it's for meals, snacks, taste tests, food boxes, then yes.
Okay, yeah, that sounds great. They do plan on working with making some culturally relevant meals with the children. And I guess to go off of that, we are looking at getting some of the produce for the meals and snacks from another entity. I think one of the challenges with this area is a lot of the local small farms are so small, they only have like maybe one or two crops. So I am reaching out to them and seeing the interest. We may be, procuring some of the food from a farmer's market, which I did coordinate with, but not necessarily like, we have an MOU with them. It may just be like the cook is going and picking up some produce from the farmer's market. Is that okay? Or
yeah, that's totally okay, for sure. The one where they need an MOU and all of that stuff, that's for the producer track, where they're having to verify it. For you, like, we're going to get your procurement records so as part of the grant, so we'll know. So yeah, that's totally great. How awesome to send the cook to the farmer's market. That's exactly, farm to fork, farm to school, the types of things that we're hoping to support.
Okay, yeah, and I'm hoping it would be maybe we can partner and have a letter of support from one of the smaller farms that maybe has plums and things like that, and use them for some of the snacks, and maybe get the additional produce from the local farmers market.
Love that.
Okay, I think that covers my question.
Yeah, Amy, anything else to add?
Oh yes, I also want to amend my previous answer. I was looking back at the, there's so many details. I was looking back at the RFA, the allowable costs for track 3. And under California food procurement costs, we do say it can be for meals, snacks, taste tests, food boxes, hands-on learning and play activities, as well as technical assistance and peer learning spaces.
Yeah,
so I think if you're procuring California grown food from that nursery you mentioned for any of those things, then you could include them in that healthy, equitable, resilient food system section if they are a food producer and meet any of those funding priorities.
Okay, great. It sounds like they do. So that's fantastic. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you guys. Okay, the last hand that I see up is Lauren Crone. Hi, Lauren. Are you there still? We just hit the hour mark for anyone who has been on this whole time. So if you have to get off, you can get off. Like I said, we'll be posting the recording. And as soon as we answer Lauren's questions, we're going to move into the chat and answer all of those ones over there. Okay, Lauren, hi.
Hi there. Yeah, luckily I feel like some of my parts of my answers were answered already. Also, in Crystal's section, it sounds like she had some similar questions. So in regards to the project team members, so I'm doing track 1, obviously, as the school district.
What district are you?
What was that?
What district are you at again?
Oh, Vacaville Unified. I know you met our director and our chef. Yeah.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, okay. We work with a lot of fun partners that are also applying for the grant. Yeah. So
for sure. Okay.
So I guess my first question is, so everything's considered one project, right? Because we're looking at allocating funds, if granted, towards equipment for Scratch Kitchen, but also obviously there's we want to continue procuring through local vendors and things like that. So the kitchen remodel would be for one site, but the procurement would be for all sites. So how would you recommend, is it split up? Do we consider it for all sites?
Yeah, first, it is all considered one project for us, right? Like you're submitting one application for the whole thing. It's not going to be multiple apps. So you can consider it phases or elements of the project, however you would want to break it out for you. And then what we're just looking for is the through line. So like you can just say, hey, we're going to be doing procurement for all the sites, and however you want to explain that process, you can. And then secondarily, you could say, and we're also going to remodel this kitchen to bring this type of product to it. The most important thing is, there's all this money coming from the state for school kitchen equipment. The KITS money last year was $150 million. This year in the budget right now, it's $600 million coming out. So it'll also be important to outline how this is really specifically for, making you farm to school ready. It's not just like a general update, right? But it's related to farm to school projects. Yeah.
Okay. And then, so in regards to the project team members, I too wanted to know, how detailed you want us to get. So we're looking towards, getting a remodel in order to do scratch cooking. Not all of our sites are able to. We have to stick to some of the prepackaged items that we have 4 schools left. We want it to be all scratch. But one of the sites that we're looking at, so would you want to know each and every person's name on the facilities team that may or may not play a role depending on what they're doing? Because our facilities department, that it depends on if it's a if we're breaking down walls. Each person has a different scope. So
yeah, I would say that's a great question in regards to facilities, because you might have the plumber, the electrician, right? Like all these different pieces. I would say on that, specifically regarding that maintenance team or facilities team, I would just put whoever's at the top of that and say this person's going to help facilitate all of the maintenance and facilities issues for kitchen remodel, something like that, so that we can just see that, okay, we know they're going to have to move a wall based on this project narrative. Do they have a maintenance and facilities person in the project team? Because if they don't, then there's no guarantee that they'll ever get that thing approved before 2024. As someone who's worked in the school district as well, I can tell you, even just planting a tree sometimes can take a year to get approved.
I know. That brings me to my next point.
Okay,
So it ties in with the budget information too. So it wants to know what month and date you plan on needing those funds? I mean, obviously, if that changes, is that really an issue? I mean, I could say, oh, we'd like to, you know, have that piece of equipment this month and this year, but I'm not, you know, I'm not in the contracting business.
Yeah, I would put in, you know, your best guess and your best estimate on the project timeline. And we know that things move and shift and adjust, especially as with the supply chain, the way that it's been. And sometimes, you know, it takes a year to get a refrigerator, right? So, you know, we understand that things can shift and adjust. So I would put in the timeline that you expect. And then if your project is selected, and then if delays happen, then we can just update the timeline and you can do a revision or whatever else. But yeah, that's all. That's all.
Okay.
Great.
And then just double checking, I'm pretty sure the budget said it, that you don't, I mean, you obviously don't need to know names of contractors that we don't even know yet, right? And things like that. Just that we're going to use it, not a specific company or anything.
Correct. And then similarly, you know, you have your own procurement guidelines for selecting a contractor. So you would just follow your own procurement guidelines when you're making that choice.
Okay.
You don't have to come to us and you know, whatever. Yeah. Right. And then the last thing is, you know, track 1 applications, all of them are procurement and education together. Right. And so sometimes we get this same question on like the facilities team, on the education team. You know, do I need every single teacher we're going to be doing Harvest of the Month in their classroom? It's kind of the same thing where if you have some teachers who are really teacher leaders, you know, put them on there. I think that could be great, but it's most important to match the narrative to the team.
Yeah, that's another thing I was bouncing around with. I wasn't sure if, you know, seeing as we're procuring for all the sites, I don't know if, you know, I was trying to decide whether or not the Harvest of the Month piece that we are going to be putting in is for all sites or one site, and do I put the principal's name who doesn't even know about it yet?
Yeah, well, I think like if it's a principal who knows about it, whoever is going to be the bridge to getting that done, and this for everyone on the call, right? It's important to put those people on there so that when we're reviewing when whoever's scoring the application can see that that's not going to be a barrier for you, that you have that ed services connection in place. So whoever you feel like represents that most effectively at your district, whether it's a principal or a director of instruction or something like that, you know, you can put that in. And then same thing, you can target the Harvest of the Month to certain sites. You could do it district wide. It's up to you.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Would that affect the score any? Like if we had it, since we don't do that currently, my thought would be to have the school that we're doing the construction at be the pilot school for Harvest of the Month also, so that it all happens together. Does that affect scoring to have?
Makes sense to me in my head, but I would check the review criteria on the website.
Okay.
Sure.
Perfect. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Just for everyone on the call, the best school meal I ever had was at Vacaville Unified School District.
Which meal was it?
It was chicken and rice and beans, and it had some delicious veggie slaw and dressing, you know, all just simple and easy and amazing.
Oh, good.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so we're moving away from the hands now and into the chat. The first question was from 9:24 a.m., a full 50 minutes ago. So hopefully you're still on the call, and I'm checking you are. Okay, thank you so much. So can you describe the level of data collection and reporting or evaluation expectations? Also the detail of receipts, invoices required. So I can tell you which track are you asking about first? And this is Andrea Moore.
For this one, it would be track 3.
Yeah, for track 3. Amy, can you go into the track 3 reporting stuff? You know, what can they expect on that front?
Sure. Yeah, this is a great question. So first, what I should say is our team is here to support grant recipients through all of this invoicing and reporting and data collection once grants are awarded. So just want to put that out there. But yes, in terms of the requirements, the first is related to invoicing. So for everyone, this is a reimbursement grant program by default. So that means that if awarded a grant, you would be once the grant term starts and your agreement is executed, you would be, making grant purchases according to your approved budget and then submitting monthly or quarterly invoices to us requesting reimbursement for those grant expenses. And we have an invoicing template that we create for each grant recipient according to your approved budget that you can use. And then we also have instructions about what types of proof of payment to provide for each type of purchase. And we have templates for a lot of that as well. So for example, if staffing is included in your approved budget, then we have a timesheet template that you can use for proof of payment along with your invoice for staffing costs. If it's food procurement in tracks 1 or 3, we have a food procurement metrics worksheet template that you can use to fill out your food procurement costs. If it is travel, we have a travel template for you to use about mileage and things like that. If it's something like materials and supplies, you would provide receipts for that. And so we kind of have that system to help guide you through what to provide along with your invoicing template when you're requesting reimbursement. And then we also want to mention that there is an advance payment option for grant recipients that are eligible. And if they are eligible, then there's certain regulations that we link to in the RFA to follow for that. So once grants are awarded, we can talk through that advance payment option more to see if a grant recipient is eligible and interested in following those regulations. So that is invoicing. And for tracks 1 and 3 related to food procurement, there is also an annual reporting requirement about your food procurement practices, because we're really interested in seeing how are these projects impacting the food system, and helping to learn about that with you all and see how we can support that more together. So then there is reporting. So reporting is quarterly. It's a quarterly check-in through an online system. We ask you some just short questions you can bullet point. It's right now we ask about glows and grows related to your project. We ask if your timeline has changed at all, and how we ask how we can support you. And then we ask some more quantitative data points about your project. So it'll probably be kind of like that. We haven't totally fleshed out what those quarterly check-in questions will look like this time. But our goal is for it not to be too burdensome. We just want to check in with you, celebrate your successes with you, and then also see how our team can support you with your project. And then there is also this external evaluation component that's really exciting that's starting this year. So there is an external team of researchers working with our team to help evaluate this program, see what the impacts are, see how we can improve it, see what's going well, see what the opportunities for growth are. And so they will be working with grant recipients throughout the grant projects. And the goal of that too is to make it as minimally burdensome as possible on the grant recipients, because we know that your priority is to serve your communities and implement these projects. And so we don't want to take away from that. We just want to help measure your success and help measure how we can support you even more in the future. I think that is that's all. That's the biggest things that come to mind to keep in mind for invoicing and reporting and stuff.
Yeah, I think that's a great, that's everything. That's all of it. I can tell you, it seems like with our current grantees, what's most burdensome is the invoicing, because it is reimbursement. And so you have to detail that. And like Amy said, the invoicing is the thing that will probably take up the most of your time. Those quarterly reports that you're filling out, they're pretty quick, honestly. It's like Amy said, it's really just us hey, is this project happening? And how can we help them if they're stuck? That's what's most important. And then there is that external evaluation coordination, like Amy said. So we have people who are going to be maybe calling you every once in a while to see what's going on and to try to verify impact. So if you have a success story that you put in your quarterly report, the eval team might want to reach out and learn more about that so that they can help tell that story and share that best practice. It's going to be stuff like that. Yeah. Okay.
Thanks, Nick. And Jazz, I saw your question for those invoicing templates. That's all available to grant recipients once awarded.
Yeah,
Thank
and
you.
then we all know smaller vendors equals less detailed receipts, if any. Yes, for sure. And that's okay. Just get whatever you have. If you're working with small vendors or a small farm and they say, you know, strawberries this much, like that's fine. Fruit this much. Just detail it out as much as you can. And, you know, we have those templates so you can kind of stick it through there. You can make it through together. Yeah.
And then the two things I forgot are a pre-survey. So that's just like a quick kind of baseline survey once the grant term starts so that we can see like how things are growing. And then at the very end is a final interview rather than a final report. So you don't need to, at the very end, like write up everything that happened. We're just gonna chat with you about it, which will hopefully be more fun for everyone.
Yeah. It sounds like a lot altogether, but remember this is over 2 years, right? So it's spread out there. Okay, and then I'm going back just to see. All right, thank you all, thank you. Okay, so the next question is from 9:57 a.m. Adelia Rowland. Thank you so much for everyone sticking around through all of this. So regarding application question 24 that asks about current practices, does procuring fruits and veggies from the school farm for school lunches and educational opportunities count for those 2 points? I'm giving Amy time to pull up that question. We might have to get back to you on that one if we can't pull it up right here, right now. But yeah, let me see. Amy, do you have it up? Do you know?
Yeah, thanks for the head start. So yes, so this is Adelia. I'm guessing this is track 2, number 24 under healthy, equitable, resilient food system. So this is a really great question. And it's kind of a complex answer. So hopefully, please let me know if we can clarify it further. But if you are procuring fruits and veggies from your school farm for school lunches, that is a totally an allowable cost in this grant program. However, for this healthy, equitable, resilient food system section, a school farm that your own school or district operates would not count in this section. So it would not count for 24. What would count is if, you know, a food producer external to your district is the one operating the school farm, and that's who you are procuring the food from, then they would qualify as a food producer that you could include in this section. But otherwise, if it's your own school or district operating a school garden or farm and you're buying food from them, then that would not qualify for this section, but it is a totally an allowable component of a project.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. All right, and then I just saw a message that I skipped some, which not the first time I've done that. So let me go back and see how far back we were. Okay. All right, so we did reporting, we did the can they apply? Okay, and then this is the other question from Adelia. Should project partners be listed as the organizational name or the lead people within those organizations? Project partner should be listed as the organization name, but then when you fill out the team, that's when you will be putting the individuals' names. And we've kind of talked about that on here of how in detail you need to go on that one.
Okay, cool, thanks.
Yeah. All right, did you have any other questions too in the chat?
I think that's it for now. Yeah, but I'm sure I'll have more later.
Thank you so much. Okay, then we're gonna keep going down. Okay, Andrea, again, is there an opportunity to revise our initial application if we have a budget adjustment or change of proposed partner? Yes, you're able to do budget revisions and scope of work revisions. Our kind of internal process, it takes a little bit of time to get all the paperwork together and to submit it, but there is a process for that. And what we try to stick to is this such a big edit that it would have changed how the application is scored, basically? And so you can do these minor edits and revisions and you're like, oh, I thought it was gonna cost $3,000, but it's actually costing $6,000 for this. You know, we can make those adjustments together, and it's a collaborative process. So yeah, you can do that. All right, the next question I see is from 927 from Yalda. We're having the same issue of nailing down that school district partner. Yeah, it can be common, especially in the summer. So like we said, you know, the staff contact information is listed online for the entire school food services staff. And then a lot of schools also offer summer meals. So that might be an opportunity to at least go and get a staff member and get a phone number. But it is, yeah, it can be hard. So we wish the grant weren't closing, you know, 4th of July weekend, but that was as quick as we could make it to turn this around and get the funds out and all of that stuff. So hopefully that helps. Okay, and then question 22 for program income we did. Okay, Gray, you had another question here at 9:44 a.m. Did we answer this one already, Gray? I can see your face, so you could do thumbs up.
Yeah, I believe so. We can consider it answered, but I just want to give you a heads up that I sent you an email with our current master services agreement with the district.
Oh, okay.
I was wondering if you could review it so I wouldn't have to hunt down the facilities director to get
Yeah,
a letter.
sure, we can review it. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. I sent it to you in an email.
Of course. And then for your question here in the chat about a nonprofit qualifying as socially disadvantaged, the answer is no. And this is something we've really been looking at because some people are sending us, you know, we're a nonprofit farm and our board members have this makeup and our staff has this makeup and there's all these things, but all of those can change at any moment, you know, and so that's why for a nonprofit, it can't qualify. I think it's something we're going to have to figure out for future rounds of funding in order to allow nonprofits to have a way into that definition and some sort of criteria, but we don't have that at this point. So right now they're not qualifying as socially disadvantaged if you're a nonprofit.
Okay, I understand. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. Okay, now we're to questions from 9:49. Julieta. Oh, okay, you're back. All right, we got that. And then y'all, again, for next year, the challenges for people who work in schools is that May is mayhem. Love that. As is June, agree. Immediately after most schools have a fully scheduled work week, then it's impossible to find anyone, though we've known about this opportunity since May. For next year, I wonder if it would be possible to release it earlier in the year. I think, yes, that would be our goal, to release it 1 or 2 months earlier. For us, we do release it as quickly as we possibly can through all of our state agency processes. And I can tell you that we were hoping it was going to come out at least 2 months or 3 months before it came out this year. But then after our public comment period, we had so much engagement from so many people. I forget how many pages we received of public comments, you know, in support and helping us refine it. But it has just taken a really long time to get this thing up. And you can see it's really 4 grant programs in one. So next year, we do plan to do an earlier application, at least one month earlier is our goal. But if we can do 2 months, I think that's on the radar for us too. We love that feedback. Thank you so much. All right. And then Adelia has the next, oh, we did question 24. That's the one I skipped to. Okay, Keith, thank you. Y'all, you're so great. I love this. It's like having a conversation, you know, in the past. Thank you so much for this transparent process and for all of your notes. We really love it and are happy to answer all of these questions. These grants are hard, so we're so happy to do that. Okay, and then the offer for support. Okay. All right. I think that's everything. Did we answer every question already? Okay. So this will be a last call then. If you haven't, Amy, do you see one we missed?
One more at the bottom, yeah, from
okay. Okay. Hold on. Can you read it?
Yes. As a part of our sustainability plan is to purchase a vehicle to help with transportation of students to our community garden and farm. Would this large item be something that can be approved?
Yes.
So yeah, yes. Equipment is an allowable cost. The thing to keep in mind is, and we can put this link in the chat, there's this document that's the CDFA Grant Administration Regulations, and there are some regulations in there regarding equipment. So first, it has a definition of equipment so that you know if this vehicle that you're proposing to purchase, it would be considered equipment. And then if it is, there's some different guidelines about like keeping property records for the equipment, and then also around disposition of the equipment if you were to like sell it or get rid of it or something. So those are just some things to keep in mind with equipment. And then the other thing with proposing equipment and various costs in the budget is to make sure that in the reasoning section, you're just explaining how it's related to helping you implement the grant project objectives.
Yeah, and that's super important to check out that equipment reporting requirement. It's not something that we were aware of. I don't know. There's so many grant regulations. So it's not something we were experts in, and now we're really learning about this process and are supporting our current grantees to do it. So Rachel just put it in the chat, this link, and you can see what will be required if you're purchasing equipment. And what is it? It's over a certain amount you're required to do this? Do you know the number, Amy?
Yes, it's something about 5,000. So it's also if it had like a useful life. It's something about the useful life amount of time, and if it's over 5,000. And yeah, the exact definition, since it's not present in my mind right now, is in there. Yeah.
It's in those regulations, so you can see it. And for anyone else who's looking to purchase equipment, there is additional reporting for that if it's over $5,000, because the state is buying it for you. And so they don't want anyone to like flip it, you know, as soon as the grant ends. So there's all of these requirements for you. So check those out and know that would be an add-on if you need to do that. Okay, and then there was one last question I saw, and from Jennifer Larkin. Amy, do you know who from Santa Cruz County is applying? We promoted the grant widely. I can't think of anyone from Santa Cruz County off the top of my head. Can you, Amy?
Oh gosh, not off the top of my head.
I can't either. We've talked to some organizations in Santa Cruz County, like, you know, months ago. I was just talking to Life Lab about a bunch of stuff, not just the grant. So I don't know if they're applying. We can see that there's over 200 applications in progress on the application portal, but we haven't like gone through each one to check. So we'll be just as surprised, I think, as you to see. Oh, Adelia, you're in Santa Cruz County. See this? This is the Farm to School Network in action. And then, yeah, Life Lab. Jacob, you're in Santa Cruz County too. That's great. And Kelsey. So we'll have a bunch of apps. It's going to be really exciting for us. You know, at CDFA, we run the Farm to School Incubator Grant Program, which you're all here for, but we also run the Farm to School Network. So we then have Farm to School Community of Practice. We're going to do a conference next year. We do quarterly calls. We do all of these opportunities. We're doing regional gatherings now for some of our Farm to School Network partners and grantees. So there's so many great opportunities for us to build these connections. And this year there's $25 million available in the grant. And next year there will be almost $60 million available in the grant. So we are hoping that these connections can get built now between grantees, between people regionally, and that we can build out this work together. And you know, we wish we could fund every application here, but we don't want to give everyone, you know, $1,500. We don't think that would be that helpful. So what we want to do is provide that larger impact. So we hope everyone can stay connected. If you have more questions or other questions, put them in the chat right now, or you can come off mute. Jacob, you have your hand up, but I don't know if that's for a new question or a remainder. So anyone who has another question, we'll stay on another couple minutes, or you can email us. We'll be ready for all of those emails to come through. And the email address is cafarmtoschool@cdfa.ca.gov. All right, any last questions? Thank you, Rachel, for putting that in the chat. Okay, well then thank you everyone so much for joining today. This is super helpful. We have one more webinar on the last day that the grant is due on the 6th. So if you have any last minute questions then, you can pop on in the morning of the 6th and we'll talk it through. All right, thanks everyone. Thank you, Sasha. I'm so glad it was helpful. We're super excited for this grant period to be almost over. Thank you all. Thank you, thank you, thank you.